I remember the day when the March on Washington was all over. We went back down to the White House. President Kennedy invited us back down. And he stood in the door of the Oval Office and greeted each one of us. He was like a proud, beaming father that everything had gone so well.
For months after that, we just all really harvested the emotional joy of what we had done.
The joy that we took home with us out of that arena inspired us to start thinking about what could we do beyond what we were doing already. And the lesson is not to stop, not to give up.
If you ask us back then that Barack Obama would be in the White House today, we would say no way.
When people left, as Dr. King suggested, we went back home, back to the heart of the Deep South, to intensify efforts to gain the vote, to get a civil rights bill passed. But 18 days after the march, it was a terrible bombing of the church in Birmingham, where 4 little girls were killed on a Sunday morning. It was a sad and dark hour for the movement. But it said to us that we had more work to do.
It's odd to say, but it encouraged us more. These people are reacting this way against us because we're being effective. And so we're going to keep on doing it. We're going to do even more if we can. We won't let this stop us. We won't let this turn us around.
We did get the Civil Rights Bill. Eventually, we did get a Voting Rights Act. But the quality of life for many people remained the same for many, many years.
One of the ways to really stop a movement is to kill off its thinkers. And they killed Dr. King, and they killed Medgar Evers, and they killed Bobby Kennedy and John Kennedy. All this was in one fell swoop eliminated.
After the Civil Rights Movement, which moved into the anti-war movement, other movements were gaining enormous energy. So the women's movement, the environmental movement took shape, the anti-apartheid movement, and the will and the belief that they could be successful emanated from the remarkable ability of the civil rights movement to progress.
I recognized very quickly that the young people and other people who were in the Occupy Wall Street movement, they were the stepchildren of Martin Luther King Jr. They were the stepchildren of the March on Washington. They were trying to raise the consciousness of the country to the inequitable distribution of wealth opportunities very much in the same way that he was trying to do it.
We need people to lead, to get out front on some of the big issues, and to be a headlight and not a taillight. And people who are speaking up today for immigration reform, for gay rights, control of the proliferation of guns, they are showing some courage.
The action of the Supreme Court 5 in gutting the essence of the Voting Rights Act, it's an enormous reversal. It's been one of the most successful pieces of legislation in modern history. Enormous change takes time, and you have to continue to battle. You don't win a lawsuit or win getting a law on the books and then fold your tents and go home. Oh no, the struggle continues.
I was part of this mobilization that has never been duplicated again, and I wonder why. I wonder why. I'm not blaming young people. Well, yes, I am. But they ought to be doing a bit more.
I really thought that feeling around Obama was so important, to know that it existed. I, in retrospect, wish that we'd managed to keep him from running for office, because he could have run a movement. I think he would have had a better chance at making social change happen if he had approached it, and the way King did.
What I say to a lot of young people who speak about the fact that the civil rights movement is somehow a thing of the past, I said, let me paint a picture for you. almost all the movement in that period, almost all critical thought, almost all critical decisions were made by the young. And if you want to take a look at John Lewis and where he was 18. You take a look at Julian Bond, he was 18. If you take a look at Diane Nash, she was pregnant and leading a movement. She was the one that designed the Freedom Rides. And none of these people came with political design and with clear thought. No. These were simple, ordinary folk. And when young people say, where do we find our leaders? Where are the Dr. Kings? Well, look where Dr. King resided and where he was found in the first instance, and maybe you'll find that there's some more Dr. Kings there.
I credit the fact that I got schooled, I got brought up in the movement, in the civil rights movement, to give me the perspective. That march laid the basis for the modern battles for human rights all across the globe. It cannot be underestimated. The fact that individual, ordinary people from across America made up their minds they were going to step into that movement and step into the streets and come to Washington to raise their grievances in the finest traditions of American democracy.